All right, so now we're gonna get our output working. Now, these micro servos here are pretty neat. They have 3 pins, so let's give you a top-down view of this micro servo. They have 3 pins, and the only downside with these 3 pins here is that they're not actually labeled. There's no label on them to tell them which one is which. So we're gonna do some decoding here in just a second, but let's go look at our spec sheet for them. So, spec sheet here as we read. This one here allows you to go to a certain angle is what we use. And so this test code is going to allow us to rotate between 0 and 90 degrees. So let's scroll down. What it's showing here is that this is a digital item. Now, I know it doesn't say that on here, but this is digital because we're essentially going to go high, back to low. But the amount of time that we go all the way up to high, in this case, 1,000 microseconds, is going to give it a specific angle. If we increase the time that we're on high, in this case, 1250 microseconds, it's going to go to 45 degrees. If we go all the way up to 1500 microseconds, it is going to go to 90 degrees. Now, these guys here have color labels, and it just so happens that in here we've got color labels. So brown is ground, red is 5-volt power, which we need, and orange is for signal. So that's how we're going to wire it up. Now this wiring diagram here is kind of funny because it doesn't show any of those colors. So we've got to make some inferences. So in our case, we said orange was going to be the signal. That's going to go here to pin 3. And then we've got a voltage and a ground with those other ones. Now there's one more thing I want you to notice on here. The connections on these are actually female connections. So we need a special connector. We need a male to female cable. You'll find those in the materials. So let's go ahead and let's wire this guy up. We'll stay nice and tight here. So brown to ground. I'm going to use green for my ground one because that kind of makes sense to me. I'm going to use yellow for my signal, and I'm going to use orange. Well, let's go orange to orange. So the 2 orange cables are connected, and then the yellow is going to be my voltage. So I'm going to wire them up like that. So in this case, I've got my orange cable going to my servo. That's going to be my signal. This is going to be my voltage, the red, and the black or the brown one is going to be my ground. And I've just read brown and green. I went red and yellow, and then orange and orange. So now let's go ahead and let's connect it up to our board. Now, they say in our instructions here that we should use pin 3 for this particular example. So let's copy them and let's use pin 3. So I'm going to take my orange signal cable and I'm going to put it on pin 3. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yellow cable, which is my voltage, and put that on the red one, and my green to the black one, green, ground. All right. So now what we can do, now I have a sneaking suspicion that this servo motor is broken, but we're going to find out real quick here. And if it is, then we're just going to swap it out. Part of the troubleshooting process. Let's go ahead and let's create a new project, and we'll call this one servo test. Now you can do it on the same one. It just makes more sense to me to do this in a brand new one here. So we scroll down and we see the test code. So first things first, they've got a on start. So what they're doing here is they're saying they're going to turn off LEDs. We're going to do something different. We're going to create a new signal just so we know, or a new icon so we know that it's copied. And what we're going to do is we are going to servo write pin 3 to 0. Let me show you where that is here. So on start, I'm going to put a new icon. For this one, I am going to put, what am I going to put? I'm going to put the rock on symbol. I assume that's what that is. Let's see if it'll tell me. That is indeed a rabbit, not a rock on. Wasn't even close. And now what we're going to do is you are going to see, what we'll need to do is we'll need to install our servo library. Now, remember, in order to do different angles, it needed to send different lengths of signal. Now, we could do that and we can code that, but it's way easier to just get a library. So we're going to come down to our extensions, and right at the top here, even if you don't see it, if you just type servo, you're going to find the micro servo library. Once that's installed, you will see a brand new tab called servos. So we can open up the servo one, and it says set servo angle at 0. So this guy here, the code says servo right pin 3 to 0. We can do two things. We can set servo angle to 0. Now there's also one more spot here. If we go pins, we also have a servo right pin, so we don't actually have to install that library. We can just drop this one in. You can use either or. I'm going to do exactly what they say, but I'm probably going to use this version in my actual code. So let's drop that. It's going to servo right pin angle 0. And then what this is going to do is it's going to say, and then it's going to wait for 100 milliseconds. So basic, pause, 100 milliseconds. Now, when we switch back to this code here, the thing says we're going to servo right pin 3 to 0, wait for a second, and then back to 90, and then wait for a second. So it should alternate back and forth. So let's build that in here. So I'm going to go back down to pins. I'm going to servo right. Oh, that's pin 0. This should be pin 3 because that's where we connected it. Pin 3. I'm going to write that to 0. I am going to basic, wait, pause for 1 second. Let's duplicate this one. I'm going to write this one to 90 degrees. And then I am going to pause again for a second. Now, let's just triple check, make sure we got everything in there. That looks great. Let's go ahead and let's download our code. And let's see what happens. So, right now, it is kind of working. But there are a bunch of funny things happening with this guy. And it's getting really hot, which makes me think this guy is broken. So if that happens to you, let's not keep that thing running. I think this guy's broken. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to go grab another one, and we're going to test it out here. All right. So again, I'm going to plug this guy in there, brown to ground. In that case, it was my green one. So brown to ground. Voltage was going to be my yellow one. Double check my connections. And then this guy here. And you can see this guy's working better. It's kind of hard to see without the thing on top of it. Let's see if I can steal this thing. I can't without undoing this guy. So this guy here is, let's see if we can zoom in. This guy here is now spinning back and forth. And it's going 90 degrees in one direction and then back the other direction. So now we've got this guy working and we can servo right. You can go ahead and test this with the other set of codes. So instead go servo. I'm going to set servo on pin 3. Ooh, we don't have pin 3 on that one. So that's why they use the servo right in the pin section. Forget I said anything. Ignore the last part of this one. Now you've got this guy working, and we'll just use this servo right, which is down in the pins. So servo right pin 02 blank. So now we've got this servo working. One thing that you should know is notice that because this guy requires 5 volts, you're going to need to have it plugged in down to the bottom of the microbit shield to make sure that it works. If you're having trouble with that, either try changing out your servo or just make sure that you've got 5 volts plugged into the bottom. So you've got that part of this done. Now it's time for you to build your own code. So that's in the next section of this video. We will see you there.